Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our Zentalk discussion. I'm Julie Langenkamp, and I am here with Sarab Kara and Steve Dine, our speakers for today. The topic at hand is establishing continuity for the future of data and analytics. And we have this theme for this series with Steve Dine about change, and change is constant, and change in your data and analytics programs will be constant. But how do you look and think strategically while also preparing for the change and adapting to the changes as they occur? So our last session with Steve was about a month ago, and we talked about the factors that drive change and what to be able to anticipate. And we talked about the need for continuity. So the theme today is all about how do you establish that continuity for the future, despite the fact that you're on a plan and things may shift, but also you're still working toward the plan and you want to be able to provide this continuity for your end users and for your program and for your IT teams. So with that in mind, I want to welcome everybody. I want to especially welcome our special guests today. Steve, it's always delightful to talk to you. Steve is head of data strategy for EXL. He is a thought leader and a teacher and a program specialist regarding data and analytics strategy, program strategy, data architecture, data integration, analytics, all of the good stuff that we love to talk about. So we are very happy to have you here for this series. And then also Sarab. Sarab is the CEO of Zentalk. We are always pleased to have you on these discussions as well. These are two gentlemen who have great ideas and great perspective about what they've learned in their careers throughout their involvement with customers and also strategic view of what the industry has in mind. So I believe that Sarab and Steve complement each other, and we might not always see things the same way, and that's what I love about these kinds of discussions. Sarab and Steve look at things through slightly different lenses, and I love that. So for today, we are talking about continuity. In July, I think we might have even more fun looking at what the future of data and analytics will look like and what future-proofing your strategy can look like, but also maybe some of the trends with AI and how things will change perhaps even faster or not, or what that looks like, both from a high-level view and then in the trenches, what people are actually facing in the industry. So watch for our date in July about that discussion. But to get started today, continuity. Last time, Steve, we talked about continuity layer and we talked about what that layer can look like, but also why people need it. Can you just recap where we were and then why that need for continuity in data and analytics is so important?
Sure, Julie. Thank you. It's great to be here. As we discussed last time, I've been in the industry for over 25 years, and the only constant I've seen is change, honestly, in programs throughout time, as well as architectures and options for software, everything in organizations, as well as user expectations. But change essentially is constant, and if you don't create some level of continuity in your architecture, then disruption will paralyze your programs. Your end users start to become detractors rather than promoters. You may still be achieving a positive ROI in your programs, but unfortunately, most organizations don't measure the success of their programs based on return on investment. They tend to evaluate whether or not their programs are successful by how their users are feeling.
So true. And Sarah, I know that you see this in conversations that you have with prospects and customers and just people, within your industry network as well.
Yeah, Julie, it's good to be here with Steve, as always. So IT and software and the whole ecosystem is moving really rapidly right now. And there's so much of excitement happening within the world of analytics, AI influencing analytics. A lot of these IT-driven initiatives really, at the end of the day, impact the business users, the true consumers of all this abundance of data that is there. How can you really make that transition or evolvement of all these different programs much more meaningful and manageable for them. So I hear this in conversations every day with customers of, how do we empower our business users? Hey, I'm introducing new programs, I'm introducing new tools. We have initiatives to bring in newer concepts in the world of data and analytics. I don't want that disruption on the business user side. I want them to be still productive, less friction, more adoption. So continuity in our world, it's a very simple concept, but it's very, very powerful and important. Love to get going on this topic and really show how we collectively can really empower the business community out there at an enterprise level.
Thank you. And to add on that, what I see when I am working on messaging and things and what resonates with people is how people really want to find and access their information. It's how do we consume that information and how can we make that more seamless, more streamlined, and simplify that, again, for that end user experience so that then they don't give up on it despite the fact that things might be changing around them or the tools might change in the background. It's providing that one spot for them to know that anything that they need, they can find and access it there. And of course, shameless plug, that's what Zentalk does. But also, we see this increasing need for that even when people don't know what Zentalk is. This desire for creating self-sufficiency within the end users to be able to find their reports and their KPIs and their sometimes even their data sources, depending on how savvy the end user is. And so from that unified perspective, that continuity layer of establishing that single place, I want to advance that conversation a little bit in terms of not just people finding their reports, but also it's more about the whole pipeline of the information assets, that from data to the analytics, to the reports, to the KPIs, to the dashboards, et cetera. And we're seeing a need for that across the whole pipeline. And so we have we have come upon requests to talk about kind of a marketplace concept. And Steve, you had some really great thoughts about how marketplace is somewhat perceived differently by different people, but can you just talk about the value of a marketplace, but how that can be, different connotation for different people?
Sure. Well, let's talk first about what is a marketplace, and there's a lot of I think confusion because really data marketplaces came out initially as public data marketplaces, and public data marketplaces are one-stop shop for buying and selling external data and analytic models for that matter. A marketplace is an easy way for data providers to market, manage, and sell their data. And so, companies like Melissa Data, it was the first one I became aware of back in the day with from a private perspective, and then data.gov from a public perspective. But there's many more in today's world. There's AWS Data Exchange, there's Elation Marketplace, there's DataRaid. There's quite a few out there. And but the concept of what I call sort of a private marketplace or an enterprise marketplace, which is one that isn't public facing, that's really internal to an organization. And they're really I define it as one place to go with an organization to find and access data sets, analytics, data definitions, glossaries, business rules, KPIs, metrics, trust scores, lineage, and ownership. And it's a concept that I'd love to take credit for it, but probably I came across my purview about 10 years ago as a concept, and it really resonated with me because it's one of the big challenges within organizations. I mean, how can users be self-service if they can't find data? How can they be self-service if they don't understand the definitions around the data? How can they be self-service if they don't understand the lineage, or they can't find analytics within organizations? It's very, very difficult for end users to become self-service when they can't find things and they can't get access. I mean, how much time do end users spend they hear about data that may or may not exist within an organization. And then they spend all this time trying to find who controls that data? How do I get access to it? What system is it in? And that's, it's valuable time that's wasted in not being able to bring those data sets together, understand them, and then, create analytics upon them and insights. So I think it's one that, in the past, I'm not sure we had the technology or the software to get there. We had the technology, but probably not the software to get there. And but now we do. And so it's very important for customers to think in this terms, even if they start out thinking it from the perspective of their programs, not necessarily, a tool specifically, but their programs. And, how do we bring these things together? And how do we get what's important for our end users, and how do we really create self-service? Not just, speaking to it and saying, oh, well, here, we're going to power our users by just, giving everybody a self-service analytic tool, right? That's sort of been the way we've tackled it in the past. And, it's worked from the perspective of users or companies have thousands of licenses of self-service analytic tools, and it makes them feel good that, they're empowering business analysts and data analysts around the organization. But they don't go back, which I talked about before, they don't go back and say, well, what are we actually achieving by doing this? Are we getting a positive return? Or is it just enhancing the skill sets of our end users and making them feel good that they can create analytics, but not necessarily insights all the time?
And, Steve, I'll add to it, not just about getting access or the discovery, but getting access to the right trusted data, the right trusted analytics, because self-service has created a really unique challenge. I keep remembering one of the quotes from one of our advisors. We came from this world of SAP where everything was overly governed. The pendulum then shifted with self-service all the way to the other side, which is ungoverned, right? Free for all. Okay, even if I have data, I'm not validating all that. I'm creating my own analytics on it and maybe insights, but is that trusted, right? Is that governed? So a platform or a marketplace which can bring in the equilibrium in that pendulum, where it brings back some governance, but simplifies that consumption and discovery of an enterprise, all enterprise assets, right? Be it for the data producers who are involved with the pipelines of data creation and availability, but also primarily for the data consumers who are actually wanting to do more and more with that data. So getting that equilibrium between a governed and an ungoverned enterprise asset, I think that really is a key aspect that I come across regularly in our conversations. Overload of information. I have so much of information. Now my people have a conundrum, sprawl of information out there. Which is the right information? How do they understand it? How do they curate it? How can we make sure it is interpretable? How can we make sure it is meaningful so that they're using that right data in a much more simplified manner? So really next level of consumption experience within the marketplace, both for the consumer as well as the producer.
No, you're right. Sorry, Julie, really quick.
Yeah,
100%, Saurabh. But what's interesting, and I've really looked at over the years, it started out by attending a conference a number of years ago, a Tableau conference for that matter, and asking a lot of the attendees, is trust important to you? They say, yeah, but that's not really the most important thing. It's, getting access to the data, being able to analyze it, and then giving that out to, people that request the information. And I really started thinking and looking at it, and trust really only matters, or it matters most to the decision makers. We've created, in a lot of ways, when we've looked at self-service, or we tried to tackle that problem, we've looked at it and said, well, here, look at all the people we now have made self-service, but the vast majority of them aren't decision makers, right? The vast majority of them are data analysts and business analysts that are out gathering and, bringing information together for the decision makers. And so, creating a marketplace where it doesn't matter if you're a producer, it doesn't matter if you're a decision maker. Really, the democratization of being able to get access easily to those analytics, and whether trust is more important to you and be able to look at those trust scores, or maybe less important as a producer when you're starting out and just getting that information together and then putting it out in the ether and getting that trust level up. So it is an interesting concept.
Mhm.
That's a wonderful perspective, and I was going to bring up trust. So hearing that anecdote makes my wheels turn a little bit. I'm kind of in that thinking mode that you were after that conversation. Trust is important, and especially to decision makers, but in that balance of what's governed versus what's not governed, and making sure that that's, again, you have continuity with that governance across the whole ecosystem. I think that having guardrails within, guardrails for self-service around the data and analytics market or the enterprise marketplace allows people, regardless of whether or not they care specifically about trust, to just have the confidence that they are using assets that are appropriate and relevant for their use in those specific moments and in those specific cases. And when we talk about, what that looks like and what kind of assets can be governed and what should be included in an enterprise data and analytics marketplace, this is kind of a conceptual diagram. It's still a work in progress because honestly, as we're talking about this new concept and as we're talking with industry experts such as Steve and our other advisors and people in the industry and other thought leaders, as well as people in the trenches working every day, there are a lot of different things on the asset side that need to come together. There are a lot of different business units that need to come together. And there are a lot of different things that all should come together in this data and analytics marketplace. But Sarab, as we're talking with people, I remember one of our recent conversations talked about not just a one-stop shop, but a one-stop shopping experience for all of these things across the enterprise. Do you mind just talking a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So yeah, this concept is really close to my heart because, again, through customer conversations, we all understand the concept of like a simple age-old BI portal, right? Analytics catalog or whatever terminology we might give it. But to really summarize and bring it all under one roof, there are different personas, different constituents of all this information and all these assets. It could be departmentalized, it could be regionalized, it could be based on different personas within a particular department. So how Zentalk is really trying to take the thought leadership forward within this trusted enterprise data and analytics marketplace is really bringing it all under one place. I'll give you a couple examples. I'm in conversations with 2-3 customers who really came to us, say, we're trying to solve the simple problem of making discovery simple and organized for my business users. But when they understood they do have data catalogs, they do have data governance tools, but those tools were lacking in business access, right? The simplicity that a business user might need to really go in and consume all that information. So they look at a tool like Zentalk or a platform like Zentalk in a larger enterprise perspective, where it can bring in not just your analytics assets in one place, not just curate and organize and enrich them, but also bringing in your data assets, bringing in data assets from data governance tools, bringing in data assets directly from the Snowflakes and the Databricks data warehouses, but making them also presentable and collaborative within the enterprise so everybody can have one place to go to access everything. So bringing that consistency and that continuity layer within an enterprise for each and every user. It could be a casual user who is just coming in and looking at his personal administration or personal development report. right? Or it could be a strategic C-suite user who's trying to make strategic decisions. Having that single place of all your trusted data sources, bringing in automation in the form of workflows, repeatable processes when you are trying to really execute business processes or business objectives, using all these assets, be it reporting assets, be it data assets, to really formulate a foolproof plan to execute and really drive the business forward. Because a concept like this, where we are working on ROI calculators with customers, is it's not just about, a nice to have. It's not just about trying to enable my business users to have yet another platform of going in and searching. Because the argument could be, today they can go into each of these individual BI tools. Not just about the soft cost savings of productivity and efficiency. That is very important, of course. But what are some hard cost savings, right? How can a data and analytics marketplace impact the top line of a company by using trusted information, by making sure that, even pennies to a dollar really add up, that using the right report, which is available to everybody, it's been vetted, it's been curated, and now I'm making that final decision of it. From a bottom line perspective, Julie, it could be, can I understand my resource allocation better? If we understand usage of the data, do I really need to support unnecessary data or the assets which are not being consumed, which are redundant, which are duplicate, right? Can I organize my resourcing structure underneath and really save on the bottom line? So different aspects, but it really is starting to impact the enterprise productivity, but also at the revenue level.
Great point. Steve, how does that align with what you are hearing and seeing in your conversations across the industry? And just as a reminder, you're on mute at the moment. So
yes, no, thank you.
You're welcome.
In the pandemic, you just got used to always trying to put yourself on mute.
Absolutely.
But always forgetting to take yourself off mute. It aligns well. I mean, the do-all end-all is that organizations are facing all the same challenges they faced for the last 40 years when it comes to data and analytics. And without a level of continuity, without the ability to bring users, to get users or allow users to sort of work within one place and not, have to switch from tool to tool and continually search. I mean, we talk about, efficiency, removing the friction from analytics and the time it takes to get from data to insights. And we talk a lot about it, but we don't necessarily talk about how to fix it. And as Saurabh said, it all adds up. It adds up. And, on its surface, organizations may look at it and say, well, if they have to go into, a few different analytic tools to get the information that they want, then, that's not a big deal. But, when you think about, well, when they have to try and figure out where those analytics are, where the data sources might be to do the analytics, where they go for data definitions, it all adds up. And, especially, as you get into larger and larger organizations. And so the other part of it is, as Sarah mentioned, that I think he called it sort of the duplication, but I say that in a higher level, say the technical debt that gets created by, all these duplication of effort, whether it's data pipelines or whether it's, the same analytics that's being done by, 25 to 250 different analysts. It adds up, and it makes organizations feel like their programs aren't successful.
Yes, and to that point, it adds up not just in terms of time spent and direct productivity and efficiency, but also I always like to think of the understandability, the intuitiveness of what people are looking at. And so having these things all in one place, if you can't understand it, then you have to wonder, okay, who do I ask about this? Who do I go to? Who owns this report? Where do I go? Where does this originally live? Why are these two reports so similar, like talking about the duplication, but there's just a slight difference in each? Which one's right? Which one do I go to? So one of the aspects of this concept that I really love is having the collaboration and the ability to connect people directly through this marketplace to create those personal connections and the contextual understanding of the information that they're looking at. And to an earlier point, you might not be interested in the underlying data set. You might just care about this particular KPI and maybe want to drill down and look at it a little bit more for more understanding, but also then you might want to drill down into the data set. So facilitating whatever end user persona, to Saurabh's earlier point, may be involved. The marketplace concept, I love it because I think of it like a supermarket. Everything you need is already there. And so regardless of who you are, when you walk into a supermarket, you should be able to find what you need easily and have a fulfilling experience with that.
And maybe even more, even easier than a supermarket.
Please, because yes.
Those big signs, that tell you what aisle, something's in it. What you need always seems to be in a category that's not in that sign.
Very true. Very
right?
true. So creating an intuitive experience around that for sure. Yes.
Yeah. And Julie, like I mentioned earlier, the world of analytics is evolving. Data and analytics, of course, is evolving really, really fast. Today, you have companies which have multiple catalogs, multiple data sources. You have maybe a Snowflake and a Databricks within the same environment. Tomorrow's world is all talking about AI, right? Multitude of AI models which are going to be introduced. So the mess or the opportunity continues to increase, right? So how can you bring out this whole enterprise marketplace for becoming that single source of truth? And I don't use this word lightly, the single source of truth. This is something that I hear now from our customers. It's a term that's been going around for decades, but making it that single source of truth, that single point of access for everybody, right? Be it the strategic user, be it the business user, the operational user, or even the data consumer, right? Getting them onto that single platform into a much more organized manner, giving them a sense of ownership, giving them a sense of belonging, that this is not just even a marketplace at an enterprise level, but it is a marketplace at a personalized level, right? Giving them that sense of ownership of their information, really drilling down by understanding user behavior. Executives like to look at KPIs, start their journey with KPIs. Analysts start their journey with reports. Producers start their journey at the data source level. So organizing this content is a very key part which has been ignored for too long. Assigning relevance, right? Simple concepts. I mean, I keep challenging a lot of our customers, practically every customer out there, even with self-service and the advancement in analytics. Steve, I'm sure you've seen this too. People create reports. There's no description. All it has is a report name. It doesn't mean the same thing to the next person sitting right next to you. It just inherits a name, but giving it a little more, bringing in best practices, bringing in a lot more descriptive and interpretation into those assets, be it a data asset, be it a analytics asset, is super important. Making it, I think, collaborative, making it understandable easily. And to the point earlier that we were talking about, the redundancy, the duplication of content. Self-service is obviously a boon and a bane. which we all realize it, but how can you improve and standardize on best practices from the end-to-end pipeline? Really, I mean, that's where I keep educating the market. We created this space of analytics catalog, analytics governance, and now the data and analytics marketplace, really trying to promote what a platform like Zentalk is adding value to our customers. The concept is picking up so much momentum right now, but obviously we've just scratched the surface, and along with all the new innovations that will keep coming in, I'm super excited about really bringing this to market.
And Steve, thank you, Saurabh, for that. And we all are excited, which is why we wanted to talk about it today. Steve, in closing, do you have anything to add about the potential value or the potential opportunity for this type of a marketplace?
Well, I mean, just touching upon something that Saurabh mentioned, I think that, and maybe we're leading a little bit into our next talk, but I think that's maybe one of the most value-added areas we can look at from an AI perspective in the near term that can be very effective, which is using AI to create those report descriptions, to add the metadata that is useful and definitions that people need when they're consuming reports. Because listen, we can tell our kids to continue, to clean their rooms every day, and they still don't do it, right? It's the same trying to get users to add descriptions and the necessary information for others to utilize their assets. But the concept of being able to enhance and provide additional information to our end users, that that's all in one place. If we're bringing all the assets to one place, whether it's a data asset or an analytic asset, providing that value add that we haven't been able to get our end users to be able to do for, quite honestly, the last 40 years.
Absolutely. And I agree with all of those things. There's such potential and such excitement. You mentioned AI and other really, well, I guess AI is the most trendy topic presently. And so next time, in a few weeks, we're going to have another discussion about continuity and change and the marketplace, and particularly related to AI and other really big changes that people may see in the industry. And I think it will be more of a brainstorming type of discussion, like what might this look like? And so please join us, watch for more information about when that will be, because it will be very exciting. In the meantime, I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and I want to especially thank Saurabh and Steve for sharing your insights and your perspective. It was delightful to talk with you as always, and we will look forward to the next Zentalk. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.